Good evening, everybody. Billy O here with another episode of Huns History. Tonight, we have David Pelton. Started with the Huns in the 80s, has been a good player, organizer, club officer, many things over the years. David, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Bill. Thanks for asking. It's been fun.
Nice Godzilla.
Thanks. I lucked out when I was at the World Cup.
What's that jersey?
It's from the Cook Islands. After a trip to New Zealand, we stopped in Rarotonga.
Move the camera down a little bit so everybody can get a shot of that. Yeah, that is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a sharp jersey from 2015.
Very cool. Well, David, this is just two guys talking about rugby. When did you start with the Huns?
I started when I was 17 in 1981. Club was awesome. Embraced me. This, kid who doesn't know anything, 5'6", 120 pounds. And the whole team embraced me and took me under their arm. And, there wasn't a one of them who didn't make me feel like their brother there.
I bet John Banks was in the middle of that. Little David Pelton.
John is often considered, we joke, he's my dad.
Doing these interviews, John Banks is mentioned by a lot of people as one of the most incredible Huns characters of all time, but also as a guy that was really a glue guy behind the scenes with new players. So it's great to hear that coming from you. I haven't been able to interview a whole lot of guys yet from the 70s and very early 80s. Why don't you talk about from 81 through 83? We went to the playoffs a couple times in 82 and 83. Why don't you talk about those early years?
It was quite interesting. I mean, not only was I 5'6", 26 pounds, I was slow. So in 81, you didn't have substitutions. You had two for injury only. And so I didn't see much playing time because we only had one side. And there was only one way to resolve that, and that was get more players out. Despite being that guy on the side, like I said, everybody was always there. I still remember my first try I had against Waco, and I wasn't a beer drinker. I never acquired a taste. Persico, hand me a beer, and I nursed that all night long, and there wasn't one Hun who gave me grief. They were just happy when I finally got it down. They were like, awesome. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, the guys, Dan Persico, Jerry Acuna, JJ Jordan, the Jay and Terry in the front row, Don Chandler, Greg Bear, James Elston, probably one of the bigger ones of characters. I mean, we had a lot of characters, but on the pitch, Elston was probably one of the biggest characters just because of the presence he'd make. Let's put it this way. As Jay would mention to me sometimes, do I really have to protect him?
Well, for those who don't know James Elston, he was a trash-talking, highly intellectual scrum half that was always causing trouble with really big words. Nobody knew for sure what they meant, but they knew it was an insult.
And he could back himself up most of the time. I remember, though, once in Shreveport, they had an ex-NFL player who played for him. And a quick tap to him, and he went out. He went straight for Elston, came forearm first, and James just flew backwards. And everyone was kind of going, yeah, he kind of deserved that.
Yeah, James probably had it coming. My recollection is the best of all those teams was that 83 Shreveport, which is an inside joke. The shuttle bus driver misspelled Shreveport on the cardboard sign he wrote up and put in the window, spelled Shreveport. But what was it like to be around and practice with and get to play with, go to the playoffs as part of that squad?
I think that's where I really got my family feel with the Huns. There was not a separation between the first and second side, though there was so much difference in the skill level between the two. And being a winger, more involved with the backs than the forwards, especially at my size. But we had such an incredible back line there. I mean, Persico could make breaks. Johnny Jordan had hands that were like vacuum cleaners that would scoop up ball and come bursting through the sidelines. Jerry Acuna had moves that were just incredible. Red Horse and Elston, between the two of them, nice ball out all the time. And just the magic that was happening in the back line there.
Where did Beetle had to fit in somewhere on that team? And with Red Horse and Elston both playing, who was Flyoff? Was it Beetle Flyoff? Where was Red Horse playing?
That's a good question now that I'm trying to think about it.
I've been trying to figure that out because I'm pretty sure Beetle was our Flyoff, and when healthy, James started at scrum. After if you remember, we'll come back to that. But
yeah,
that road trip, even though we lost that game, I've said this before, I thought we were the better team. They had a great fly half that could kick for field position, kick for points, and was a good tackler. And you know, he basically won and saved the game for them. I think we scored 3 tries. It was a heartbreaking loss, but the night on the town that night was pretty remarkable.
I remember coming back into the bus, as you said, we took a bus out there, and we were just, you know, doing it all on the cheap and coming back into the bus because it was a hard game. I mean, I remember, you know, again, like I said, I think by 83, you were around maybe 4 substitutions. But again, they were injuries. They were not that you could fake an injury. If anybody thought it was a lung injury or, oh, we're going to bring in the sub, it was like, no, it was a true injury. So you didn't get much in the way of substitution. But even being on the sidelines, how intense that game was. And, you know, I remember the letdown when everybody came off, that just the ache the team felt. And then that night, just kind of getting out and remembering back, hey, we were Huns, and this was the competition was important, but it was the team that was even more important, and the support everybody just kind of getting back to being a Hun and the fun that was had that night in Shreveport.
Well, we had a really down period, and the year before we'd gotten beaten pretty badly in the playoffs by Denton. And so we had a very good year and a very successful year regardless. But yeah, that night was special. That team was special. I'm particularly fond of Jay Rudd and Terry Adams in the front row, Rick Russell in the second row. I've got some good pictures a couple weeks later from the Austin tournament that year.
Well, don't forget also, we had, you know, the names just came back to me. We had Doug Harlow and Scott Spann.
Yeah.
2 UT water polo guys and swimmers that were just these massive hulks.
Doug Harlow was a really good athlete, you know, huge shoulders, good composure. You know, it'd be a couple times that I'd be losing my temper, and the 2 guys that would come over and talk to me would be either Jay Rudd, who you never didn't listen to because he was Jay, and Doug Harlow had a really good way of getting through to people. I left in '84, and sometime soon after that, you and James Elston and some others had success where I had failed in the '70s, getting a club rugby team started at the University of Texas. And that was both a really good thing, but it was also sort of a split type experience for the Huns. And, you know, we know from fairly recent history that the Huns don't deal with splits all that well. So why don't you talk about getting UT rugby started?
So in the spring of '95 was the Texas Collegiate Tournament. And we got half Austin Blacks, half Austin Huns together to play in the tournament. We did well. We had a really good time. And we were like, well, why don't we go ahead and let's try to make it full time? Unfortunately, at this point in time, the Huns numbers had started to drop. We weren't running with 35, 40 guys at home games. We were kind of guys on the first side were having to play second side. And then when we started UT, a bunch of folks left because they were all still students, and they're like, "Yeah, I want to play for my school. I've had lots of fun with the Huns, but I want to play with the schools." And the numbers on the Huns just got decimated. You know, growing up with the Huns, heard about the early games against Austin, and heck, I remember first playoff game that would have been TRU 80, probably 83, because we didn't have two sides in 82. And I'm playing scrum half, and the first ball I get out, and then all of a sudden I get a forearm in the back of the head from an Austin player. We're playing him in the first round. I'm like, what the heck is that? It was just, this was typical Austin versus
You were
Huns.
talking about one of the golds.
Yeah, one of the golds.
In the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. And the same thing happened when UT played the Huns the first time in the fall of 85. In fact, an unfortunate incident happened during that time. Some of our players took exception to a hit Jack put on one of the players.
Jack Bloom.
And Chris Brunel, who had also played with the Huns, targeted Jack and just laid this devastating hit. Unfortunately, what nobody, I know Chris, and I'm sure Chris didn't plan this, Jack's foot got caught.
Uh-oh. And
the really bad break he had in his ankle was this incident here. And it was during this game. And it was hammer and tongs the whole game through. And this just kind of added more to it there.
Earlier you said 95 and you just said 85. So what year?
I'm sorry, 85.
80
sorry.
For UT Rugby, 1985.
Yep. And our first full season was the 85-86 season. And this game against the Huns was in the fall of 85.
Was Kirk Tate with you right away in 85?
Oh, yes. Kirk was.
So he was a part of Kirk Tate was a part of this process too.
Part of this process, James Elston, John Jones. Red Horse did not leave. None of the grad students left and came. Chris Brunel. We had just had Bill Bartok, Flounder. He had played some with Austin, came over to play with us for just a bit. It was just a couple games before the split in the spring. So yeah, we took a large number of players, especially some that had just started to come out. Vinny had come out and left. Anybody who was basically under 21 left the club to come play for UT.
Look, being an old man with the benefit of decades of hindsight, we got over it as a club, and it's good that you guys started UT Rugby, and I think that's fun. I would love to just be able to say I played rugby for the University of Texas. So fast forward about a decade, you guys got Jay Rudd and Terry to come out of retirement. My understanding, and the years get fuzzy when these guys tell the stories, but I think in the championship year of 93 it was, the coach quit or got run off or got fired or something because it wasn't working out. And all of a sudden you're coaching the Huns, and you guys had great success that year winning TRU. And also sometime about then you guys won Corpus Christi Sevens, which was a really big deal at the time. And I know from Poot, the Huns Sevens program kind of got launched. Why don't you talk about the Western Union, playoff team that won TRU, and talk about Huns Sevens for a few minutes?
Sure. I think I may have to, best to my recollection, I've been going through some old pictures, so I could be wrong too, but I think I've got a little corrections to your history there. I came back to the Huns. I had left for Florida and Bama, came back to the Huns in 90, and the Huns weren't doing too hot. Coach left. I took over and coached the 91-92 season. To the best of my information that I've got, it was the first time we ever won a TRU playoff match. And heading in, we had a great season. And
that's
so
90. So that's the spring of 92 now?
Spring of 92. So I contacted the head of the West because Mobile, Alabama was touting themselves as we're the best in the nation and come face us. And so I contacted the West because I'm figuring, hey, look at the side we've got. We could go there, and convince the West to send a D2 team to play Mobile. There were only 4 territories at the time: the East, which was Mobile; West, Midwest, and Pacific. And
Yeah, that's the way it was when I played too. There were 4 regions.
yep. So we convinced the West. That was it. We went in and we won that semifinal. And this is great. We're going. But there was one small problem. The Sunday of the championship, Jay and Loretta were getting married. We lost the majority of the team to go to the wedding. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime thing. Of course you go. And we ended up losing the final to Denton. I ended up on Girlfriend and eventually Fiancé Island. So I did not coach during the 92-93 season that went to nationals. I helped organizationally. I helped some with coaching, but it was more, my recollection, it was more of a group effort. We got some new players came in. Jay and Terry decided to stay for another season, and we built upon what I had started in 91, 92, but it was really more of a group effort.
Maybe Don Chandler just had one too many concussions and mixed those 2 seasons together. But regardless, you helped kind of build the team in 91, 92, and in 92, 93, they went on to win TRU and went to the Westerns.
Yes. We had Artie Acuna moved to fly half. We had Joe Pay at scrum half. Inside and outside center were Nate Ashby and Nate and
Thierry Dubois, maybe?
Terry Dubois and Graham Watson were at wings.
Wings, got it.
Dave Sugden at fullback, and Nate's buddy Kirsch was our other center. We had great backups. I was playing backup. Turi and Graham are just awesome players. There's no two doubts about it. I mean, I made TRU sevens that year, and probably only because neither Graham nor Turi were playing sevens. So, we had good substitutions come in. Front rows, Jay, Don, and Terry. We've talked about them already. We had Dave Zach in at second row, who was just a rock. We had a great back row that was all over, and in all of these spots, we had guys.
The back row was Jack Bloom and John Banks, and then some Air Force guy, right?
Yep. And what was great was when people had to go down, we had people who stepped in and who could fill in at that spot. Oh, silly me, David Acuna was the other center, but we had Nate. Nate could fill in for David. And so we all worked together in coaching. So back up a little bit. When I left UT and headed to Florida and headed to Alabama, especially in Florida, I was under a wonderful program at Boca Raton, played with a Springbok, a Paraguayan under 21, and some East All-Stars and Eagles in the back line. And we had a coaching program, and I really learned a lot. And I was able to take that back to, and then at Bama, I got to work on that some because I was coaching there in Bama when I was playing. But I was able to take all that experience back to the Huns, and the guys bought into the program. And so when like I said, I was on Girlfriend and Fiancé Island, so I wasn't there at every practice. But the team had bought into it, so everybody was there to hear the parts to make us move along. We liked what we saw in 91, 92. We all had that same North Star, and everybody could work towards it. And now we had some groundwork of which to work on.
You actually had a game plan, but I don't understand this Fiancé Island business. She was a rugby player. How come she wouldn't let you go to practice?
Oh, she let me go to practice. There was no. Betsy had played at Yale. She had nothing.
She's smart too.
Oh, she was smart too. Oh yes, I was punching above my weight as I am now with my current wife. But we were just doing things. I was doing things, and especially heading into that fall. I was more involved in the fall and spring than I was the preseason leading us up to. We had a Texas Counties tournament we used to play with Alamo City, San Antonio, ourselves, Corpus. Sometimes McAllen would come up, and we'd play a round robin. And all leading into that, I was off date weekends.
Let's talk just real briefly. I know you like sevens. The Huns started having success in sevens. Poot and Zach have talked heavily about winning Corpus Christi sevens, and the Huns really committing to sevens and starting to gather quite a lot of hardware. They give you a lot of credit for being part of that. I know you were treasurer and you've done a lot of behind the scenes things for the Huns too. Why don't you talk a little bit about getting that program started and being a Huns organizer?
Okay, well, it actually started back in summer of '86. We created a team called the Irrationals. It was some of us from UT, some from the Huns. And then as we moved into the 91, 92, I still had my connections with UT, and we recruited UT players because they weren't playing during the summer. And we had quite a program going. And again, using the past experience that I had in Boca, was able to bring that forward, and we started playing. We took a little more serious our fitness. We had a good summer in 91. We had a good summer in 92. And 93, folks were starting to see, we always made a good presence at the Corpus Christi Sevens. Because, the Acuna's homecoming there, everybody coming down. Corpus always threw a great tournament. It was a lot of fun there at the beach. More guys stayed involved, and we started doing well. And so, and we did start bringing home, we brought home hardware from the Dallas Sevens, from the San Antonio Fiesta Sevens, from the, from Corpus, and then we capped it all off. I was just looking at pictures before, and I think we ended up taking second in Corpus. I could be wrong there. It was a grainy picture, and we won the Hotter Than Hell Sevens in A&M. And it was just a case of everybody, again, buying into, instead of making it, hey, this is this weekend thing that we go do, we practiced during the summer. And we did exhibition matches at half times of various sporting events in San Antonio and over in Westlake that gathered us more impetus to be playing a higher level of sevens.
John T. Reese once told me that Captain Poot, who was an all-state, all-Texas sevens player with you, and I think another time with Graham Watson, John T. told me he thought Poot had the greatest ball fake in Huns history. Any truth to that?
Yes, it is. It is absolutely beautiful. He had two, but the one that I love the most is at lineouts. That he'd yell over to somebody, "Hey, get that dog off the pitch!" And sure as could be, all seven of the opposition would go look to where he pointed, and John Alvarez would throw the ball into Poot, out to me, boom, out to the back line, scores. It was
as far
brilliant.
As just a ball fake, Poot had a good one.
Poot also had a good one there. I mean, playing against and with Poot some in 15s, never would have suspected his brilliance in sevens. And it was a very atypical brilliance. He could just make some things happen that you would not have expected. Baffled and befuddled the opposition is probably the best way to put it.
Doesn't surprise me. He's still baffling and befuddling a lot of people. He would admit that. We're kind of running out of time. I know you've stayed super involved. You and your current wife, who I think also was a rugby player, right?
Yes, she's played rugby and is now currently still playing rugby. She actually plays for the old boys team, wears red shorts because up here in their Masters League, red shorts, you can't be tackled. So she loves it. She's like, I can tackle, and all I have to do is grab somebody and call them tackle.
But you guys have gone to World Cups together. I know you've stayed involved in USA Rugby, evaluating referees. You still doing that with USA Rugby?
More with USA Rugby now is educational and citing. because I'm more busy with World Rugby. I do citing. It's basically looking behind the scenes for disciplinary issues that the referee didn't catch. In fact, that's where I mentioned I was at World Cup. This last World Cup, I was assigned one of the 7 citing commissioners for the whole tournament.
Holy smokes. That's a whole conversation for another day. I've been asking everybody, who's your favorite? If you had to pick one, who's your favorite Huns character?
Wow. It's probably Elston, though Persico and Jay. I got to tell you this Jay story. Have we got time for it?
Yeah, sure. We're talking Jay Rudd, right?
Jay Rudd. So growing up, and I really do consider it, those years 81 through 85, that's me growing up. Whenever a fight would break out, Jay would just grab 2 or 3 guys. And for those of you who haven't met Jay's a bricklayer. His hands are massive.
They're like catcher's mitts.
And he'd grab a couple guys and just in this low, quiet voice, today we stand here. And you just see this fear in the other team. And they're like, yes, sir. When I was coaching in 91, 92, a fight started breaking out against Denton. The referee asked some comment, and a woman from the sidelines said what she saw. And the Denton hooker made a very derogatory remark about this lady. I've never seen a hand move so fast. Jay just backhanded the guy, and he just drops like a rock. I'd never seen Jay hit anybody before. It was Loretta, his wife, that this person made the remark about. The next couple times, Jay did get red carded. The next couple times we played Denton, that hooker came nowhere near any ruck. And it's something I've always taken, that there's no need. When you have to, you can back it up. But like I said, all those years of playing with Jay, and anytime something happened, I remember against Waco where there was an all-in. No, Jay's just grabbing guys. We're not doing anything.
I was always really brave doing crazy things when Jay was on the field with me, or at Nasty's afterwards, knowing Jay was nearby. Not so much because I wanted him to fix it for me, but if things got really bad, Jay would keep me from getting killed. All right. Hey, David, it's been great. Thanks for all you've done for the Huns and all you're doing for USA and World Rugby. And by the way, great hairdo, man. If I had any hair left, I'd paint it blue too.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, everything I've done after the Huns is because of the Huns. The Huns gave me so much that really what I've done is been trying to pay back all that the Huns did for me. And I've lucked out with where I got to go because of that.
Amen, brother. Amen. Thanks again, man. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Huns.
Huns.